All right, so we're diving into how to be awesome in high school. And let's be real, who doesn't want to be awesome, right? But this book, it goes way deeper than those cheesy motivational posters.
It really does. In fact, it tackles that question head on. Like, what does awesome even mean, especially when you're trying to survive, let alone thrive, in the jungle of high school?
Yeah, because it's easy to say be yourself, but what does that even look like when you're facing down a mountain of homework and trying to figure out who you are?
Exactly. And that's what I love about this book. It gets that high school is this unique, kind of crazy time, and it connects being awesome to facing those very real challenges head on. It's about figuring out who you are, what makes you tick, and then using that to navigate all the pressures and expectations, not just caving to them.
So it's less about fitting in and more about standing out,
Hmm.
but like in a good way.
Yes. And it takes it a step further by tying this idea of being awesome to the idea of constantly growing and learning. It actually reminded me a lot of Carol Dweck's work on growth mindset. You familiar with that?
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. It's like your abilities aren't set in stone. You can always develop them, right?
Exactly. It's like you walk into a pop quiz and instead of freaking out, you're like, okay, what am I going to learn from this? Whether you ace it or totally bomb it, it's about seeing those challenges as opportunities to level up.
That's a pretty epic way to look at things. But how do you actually make that shift, from panicking about a test to seeing it as a learning experience?
Yeah, it's not always easy. One of the tools this book talks about is setting SMART goals.
Smart goals, huh?
Mm.
I always thought those were like more of a CEO kind of thing, not for figuring out high school.
That's the thing, though. They're not just for business tycoons. And this book breaks down how SMART goals apply to your life, like right now. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. It's about taking those big, scary goals like I want to get into a good college and breaking them down into smaller, more manageable steps.
So instead of I'm going to ace every single test this year, it's more like, okay, this week I'm crushing that history quiz on the French Revolution.
Exactly. You're
Yeah.
making it specific, achievable, all that good stuff. And that relevant part, that's huge for high schoolers. It's so easy to get caught up in what everyone else is doing.
Mm.
But this book, it really stresses picking goals that light you up, whether it's music, sports, writing, whatever your jam is.
That reminds me of when I was learning this crazy difficult guitar piece in high school. I almost gave up because it was just so overwhelming. But then, without even realizing it, I kind of started using SMART goals. I broke the piece down into sections, set deadlines for each one, and slowly but surely, I conquered it.
There you go. SMART goals in action. And that feeling of accomplishment, that's huge for building confidence. And let's be real, you need a whole lot of confidence to survive the jungle of high school.
No kidding. One minute you're on top of the world, the next you're like hiding in your locker. Speaking of confidence, this book digs into that too.
That time. And it makes a point that really resonated with me. Confidence isn't something you're born with, it's a skill. It's something you build by, actually facing your fears and pushing yourself. One of the techniques the book talks about is positive self-talk.
Okay, I gotta admit, sometimes that whole positive self-talk thing, it feels a little cheesy to me.
I hear you. But the book frames it less about cheesy affirmations and more about talking to yourself the way you talk to a friend who needs a pep talk. Acknowledge those negative thoughts, the I can'ts, the I'm not good enoughs, and challenge them with something more realistic, more encouraging.
So instead of saying, I'm gonna bomb this presentation, it's more like, okay, I'm nervous, but I've prepped, I know my stuff, I got this.
Exactly. Be your own hype person, but in a genuine way. And what's cool is this lines up with cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Basically, it's about changing how you think so you can, handle situations better.
It's like having a secret weapon against those self-sabotaging thoughts.
You'll love it.
Okay, so we've got the growth mindset, the SMART goals, confidence boosting. It's like we're assembling this toolkit for high school success, right?
Yeah.
But there's one tool I'm betting is absolutely essential and that I still struggle with, even as an adult.
Let me guess. Time management.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. Seriously, how is it that no matter how much time you have, it never feels like enough?
Right. It's the universal struggle. The book talks about taking control of your schedule, prioritizing tasks, and of course, avoiding procrastination.
Oh, procrastination. That monster always seems to show up right when I need to start a big project. But what's the book's advice for actually slaying that beast? Besides just saying, stop procrastinating, because that never seems to work.
It's not just about willpower. Remember our chat about growth mindset? Well, this ties right in. Big, scary tasks can be totally paralyzing, but when you break them down into smaller chunks, they feel way more manageable.
It's like that saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Less intimidating.
Exactly. And the book has some solid tips for actually doing this. Create a realistic schedule, prioritize those tasks, even use apps and stuff to stay organized.
Okay, so we're conquering those to-do lists, feeling
Yeah.
confident, embracing that growth mindset. But this book goes beyond just acing tests and stuff, right? It gets into all the other parts of high school, like relationships, figuring out your passions, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. It recognizes that high school is about so much more than just grades. It's about exploring who you are, making those connections, finding what truly lights you up.
Right, that spark that makes you excited to get out of bed, even if there's a looming math test. But how do you even start to find that?
Well, one thing the book suggests is simple but super powerful. Try new things. Step outside that comfort zone, explore hobbies, see what piques your interest, even if it seems a little scary at first.
Like if you've always secretly wanted to try out for the school play but been too nervous, this is your sign to go for it.
Go for it. Give yourself permission to explore. Who knows, you might surprise yourself.
And this is where all that confidence we were talking about comes in handy, right?
100%. It takes courage to put yourself out there, especially in high school.
For sure. But the book doesn't just tell you to go find your passion and leave it at that, Rip.
Nope, it goes deeper. It encourages you to really think about your interests. Like, what are those things you naturally gravitate toward, even if you don't think they're cool or whatever? What makes you lose track of time? Those are often clues.
So even if it's something like, I don't know, collecting stamps, if it lights you up, that's a clue worth following.
Absolutely. Embrace those passions, no matter how big or small they seem. Often they hold the key to a really fulfilling and, yes, awesome life.
This is starting to sound like a recipe for a seriously epic high school experience. We've got the growth mindset, smart goals, self-care, focus on relationships, and now finding our passions. But something tells me there's one more key ingredient, something maybe a little unexpected, am I right?
You are so right, and it's a big one. This book goes beyond the usual self-improvement stuff and dives into something much deeper, something that often gets overlooked in the pursuit of, well, awesomeness.
Okay, you've got me on the edge of my seat here. What's the secret ingredient for an awesome life?
Giving back, helping others, contributing to something larger than yourself.
Hold up, so it's not all about me in high school.
Not at all. The book makes it clear that true fulfillment, true awesomeness, really often comes from making a positive impact on the world around you. It's about using your strengths and passions not just for your own benefit, but to make a difference in other people's lives.
I can definitely get behind that.
Yeah.
But how does the book suggest high schoolers actually do that? It's not like we're all out there solving world peace just yet.
Right. It doesn't have to be some grand gesture. It's about finding everyday ways to contribute. The book talks about volunteering, mentoring younger students, getting involved in causes you care about.
So whether it's tutoring kids at the library or, I don't know, organizing a fundraiser for the animal shelter, it's about finding ways to use your own unique talents to give back in a way that feels meaningful to you.
Exactly. And even small acts of kindness can have a huge ripple effect. You never know how far your actions might reach.
So true. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. Crushing those SMART goals, taking care of ourselves, the importance of those solid friendships, giving back to our communities. This book is like a roadmap to not just surviving, but really rocking high school and beyond.
It really is. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, we wanted to leave you with a question, something to think about as you navigate this crazy time.
And that question is,
Remember how we were talking about finding your people, those awesome friends who get you? Well, this next part's huge. It's not just about finding them, it's about navigating those relationships, especially in high school, because let's be real, things can get kind of messy.
no kidding. It's like navigating a minefield out there sometimes.
Mhm.
So what's the book's take on handling all those relationship ups and downs, the friendship dramas that seem to come with the territory?
Totally. It dives into this idea of setting healthy boundaries in your relationships, and not just with like romantic relationships, but with your friends too. And it's not about, being mean or shutting people out. It's more like learning how to say no when you need to and speaking up for yourself even when it's scary or you think it might rock the boat. It's about respecting yourself and making sure other people respect you too.
Which, I gotta say, can be tough in high school.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much pressure to fit in, to just go with the flow, even if something doesn't feel right.
Totally. And the book gets that. It even talks about those situations where you might need to reach out to a trusted adult, like a parent, a teacher, a counselor, someone like that,
Mm.
especially if you're dealing with bullying or peer pressure that just feels like too much to handle on your own.
So important.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easy to feel like you have to deal with everything by yourself, especially in high school. But having those people in your corner can make all the difference.
Yeah.
It's like having a safety net when you're learning to walk that tightrope of high school social life.
But this book doesn't shy away from the tougher stuff either, right? It gets real about those difficult emotions we all deal with, even in the hallways of high school. You're reading my mind. We talked about facing your fears earlier, and this book tackles one of the big ones head on: failure. In fact, there's a whole chapter on embracing those stumbles and setbacks that are just a part of life, not just high school.
Wait, hold up. Embrace failure.
Yeah.
Like, give it a hug and invite it to a study session, because I'm not sure I'm ready for that level of closeness.
Maybe not a hug, but maybe a
Well,
high five. The point is, failure happens. It's going to happen to all of us no matter how hard we try. And this book encourages us to kind of shift our perspective on it, to see it not as this big scary monster, but as a chance to learn and grow.
so instead of letting a bad grade or,
Yeah.
striking out the big game completely crush your spirit, it's
Yeah.
about figuring out what you can learn from it, how you can do better next time.
Exactly. It's about building that resilience, that ability to bounce back from setbacks stronger and wiser. It's about seeing those so-called failures as stepping stones, not roadblocks.
Okay, I like that stepping stones, not roadblocks. So
Mm.
we're building our confidence, tackling those to-do lists, embracing those setbacks. It's like we're becoming unstoppable. But let's be real, high school can be super stressful.
Sure.
How does the book suggest we keep our cool when it feels like everything's hitting the fan?
Such a good question. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with finding your passion and giving back. When you're feeling super stressed, it's important to tap into those things that light you up, those activities that help you de-stress and recharge.
So whether it's blasting music, hitting the gym, or just curling up with a good book, it's about making time for the things that bring you joy, even when you feel like you have zero free time. Because self-care isn't selfish, right?
Absolutely. It's essential. And the book even talks about those times when you might need more than a bubble bath and a good night's sleep. When those tougher emotions like stress and anxiety stick around. It's important to know that it's totally okay to reach out for help, to talk to someone you trust.
Yes. Like, you don't have to go through those tough times alone. There are people who care about you who want to help you through it.
Exactly. Sometimes just talking about what's going on can make a world of difference.
Totally something we all forget sometimes.
Mm.
Okay, so we've talked about how important those solid friendships are, but of course, friendships aren't always perfect. How does the book suggest we navigate those disagreements and conflicts that pop up even in the best relationships?
That's where those communication skills we talked about earlier come in handy. The book really stresses the importance of being open and honest with each other, but it also emphasizes empathy, trying to see things from the other person's point of view.
So even when you're totally convinced you're right, which, let's be honest, in high school, we're always convinced we're right, it's about taking a step back and trying to understand where the other person's coming from.
Exactly. It's about really listening, not just waiting for your turn to talk. And sometimes that's all it takes to work through a disagreement and find a solution that works for both people.
Communication is key,
Right.
but so much easier said than done, especially when emotions are running high. Like in high school, when it feels like everything is a big deal.
Oh, for sure. And the book gets that. It even gives some practical tips for communicating better, like taking a break if things get too heated, using I statements instead of blaming each other, focusing on finding solutions instead of just dwelling on the problem.
Those are actually really helpful tips, even for those of us who are way past our high school days.
Right. I think we could all use a refresher on communication sometimes. But okay, back to the book.
Mm.
You ready for another little nugget of wisdom? This one really surprised me.
Always up for more wisdom. Lay it on me.
Okay, so remember how we were talking about this book going beyond just, getting good grades and making friends? Well, it also dives into something I think is often overlooked in that whole quest for awesomeness, and that's the importance of.
Okay, spill the tea. What's this overlooked ingredient for being awesome?
It's about teamwork, realizing that being awesome isn't a solo mission. It's about embracing collaboration, and not just in high school, but beyond.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
After all, you don't see a band hitting the big time without everyone, playing their part. But how does that actually work, say, when you're stuck doing group projects?
Well, the book talks about learning to work effectively with others. And yeah, that includes those classmates who might not be your BFFs or who see things totally differently than you. It's about recognizing that everyone has their own strengths and that by combining those strengths, you can create something way cooler than you could on your own.
It's like that saying, two heads are better than one, even if those heads sometimes, bump into each other.
Exactly. The book even gets into those tricky group dynamics, like Dealing with conflict, making sure everyone's voice is heard, figuring out how to divide and conquer a project so no one feels overwhelmed.
Because let's be real, group projects can go from 0 to 100 real quick if everyone's not on the same page. So we're talking communication, compromise, and maybe a little patience too.
Yeah. Definitely. And those skills, they're not just for high school, they're for college, for your future jobs, for life in general.
It's like high school is basically boot camp for like navigating the world one group project at a time.
Totally. But this whole collaboration thing goes beyond just schoolwork. The book also talks about mentors, finding those people who inspire you and can offer guidance.
So we're not just talking about our friends here. We're talking about finding those people who've like been there, done that, and can offer some wisdom.
Exactly. Because let's face it, even with all the best intentions and like perfectly written smart goals, there are going to be times when you need a little help.
That's where the mentors come in, right? Someone who can lend an ear, offer a fresh perspective, maybe even give you a little nudge in the right direction.
Exactly. And the book points out that mentors can be anyone, a teacher, a coach, a family friend, even someone you've never met but whose work you admire.
Okay, so to recap, we're building confidence, setting goals, tackling procrastination, nurturing our relationships, finding our passions, giving back to our communities. And now we're assembling our own personal dream team of mentors. This is starting to sound less like how to be awesome in high school and more like how to be awesome in life.
Right. It's about realizing that awesome isn't some prize you win at graduation. It's about constantly striving to be your best self, no matter what challenges life throws your way.
Because the real world. It definitely doesn't come with an instruction manual.
Nope. And honestly, that's when the real learning begins. But all those skills you're developing now, that's what's going to help you navigate it all, no matter what path you choose.
So to everyone heading back to school, remember, being awesome isn't about being perfect or having it all figured out. It's about embracing the journey with all its ups and downs, learning from your mistakes, celebrating your wins, and never giving up on becoming the best, most authentic version of you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. Find your people, build your team, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
You got this. Go out there and be awesome.